Hello and welcome back. Some time ago, I did a session on GitHub's OpenSpec, which was quite well received considering how small this channel is. And that is why today we will be looking at OSPX and how to use it. OSPX is the latest iteration of OpenSpec, which is another framework for spec driven development. I hope you enjoy this session. So let's get right into it. OpenSpec is an offering from Fission AI, and if I go to their official GitHub repo, which is github.com/fission AI /openspec and if you scroll down to the docs section, and within that, if you open opsx.md, you have a comprehensive documentation on what this is all about. Okay, and as they say, OPSX is now the standard workflow for OpenSpec. So it's a fluid, iterative workflow for OpenSpec changes. No more rigid phases, just actions. And then they go on to give a nice diagram on how the previous OpenSpec, if you had used it, right, the OpenSpec flow would look like, where it is hard coded in the package. You need to wait for the new release and hope it's just better. So essentially, in the previous OpenSpec flow, when you ran the OpenSpec commands, right, it was within the package. It was a sort of black box thing, and you could only view the changes, the final changes, once it was all done. So there was no intermediate steps where you could actually go in and look on or edit what's happening there. This has now changed with OPSX, where you have a schema which you can edit in the beginning, right? So you can set a structure on the changes or the framework or the boundaries of what should be changed, what should not be changed. You have some templates, and it is iterative, so you can go and check in on all those changes. And this is for everyone. So I will be sharing this link in the video description below, so just check it out. If you move up to the parent page, it will bring you up to the GitHub repo, and within that you have the README file where it elaborates on OpenSpec's philosophy on how it is fluid, how it's iterative, how it's easy, not complex, which I personally feel is a jibe at GitHub's SpecKit. Okay, but that might just be me. Don't quote me on that. And then they say how you can see it in action. So quite an interesting README right here. Okay, so just have a look through this. Now, before we get into the real action, let us quickly skim through on what exactly will be covered in this session. So we already have been through the introduction on what exactly OPSX is all about. It essentially is the new or the latest iteration of OpenSpec and why it exists. We also did have a quick look on the comparison between the old OpenSpec flow and the new OPSX workflow, right? The old OpenSpec workflow used to be in linear phases where you had a plan, design, build. It was rigid and it was difficult to revise. The new workflow, OPSX workflow, is more flexible and it's more collaborative in the sense that you as a developer or user would have more opportunities to step in and guide the flow there. So quite useful. And the user experience is all about actions, so it's not about phases. Setup and configuration is quite easy. And this is the list of commands that I'll be covering in this session, right? So you have OPSX Explore, which you can use if you want to review existing OpenSpec or OSPX specs. You have a new when you're starting brand new, which is where we will be starting from, by the way. You can continue work on an existing spec by using continue. You can apply the changes and you can view the status. There are a couple of other commands which we will touch upon. And if you compare the update versus start fresh heuristics, OPSX helps decide whether to update an existing spec or to start a new one based on the changes in the goals, scope, or architecture. The dependency graph model of OpenSpec is it has the proposal, it has the specs, designs, tasks, apply. That's how it's split in where you have. So this is the different steps or iterations that it will take you through when you apply the OPSX workflow on your project. So it is an iteration model where you have update, you have apply, explore, new. So it actually goes like this, right? So it is either explore or new and continue, and you can either update or apply. I think that's pretty much it. And now let's get started on the project. I will be doing a brownfield implementation, which essentially means that I already have a project on which I want to make some changes. So make this crystal clear, I will not be doing a greenfield implementation. You could if you wanted, but I feel this OSPX flow is more suitable for brownfield implementations, which does not mean that you cannot use it for greenfield. You could absolutely, but where it actually smashes it out of the park is for brownfield, and that is what I'll be demoing. So this is the project that I have. This npm project, right? And let me show you what it actually does, what the as is UI actually looks like. So I'll just do a npm run dev and started. Okay, so let me open the browser. Yes, I'll open this. Let me just change it to localhost. Okay. This resolves any firewall issues and allows the YouTube thumbnails and previews to come through. So this is a tutorial website, and it has a nice landing page where it just gives a heading like a title, Learn the Basics of Web Development in this exciting tutorial. So if I click on it, it's a nice video that it has actually embedded from YouTube. And if I go to the episodes page, it has some episodes, right? Some blank thumbnails, essentially styling in Next.js, getting started with Next.js, all about JS. Now this is just a demo. Okay, so you have a about page, you have a FAQ page, and all the theme, if you noticed, is in black. Right? I don't like this. I want this theme to be changed from black to maybe blue. Right? And this is what I'll be trying to do using OpenSpec. Let's see how it reacts to it. I've opened the code of this project, which is in Node.js using Code Insiders. You could use VS Code, or you could use any IDE that supports AI agents. So essentially, it's your poison of choice here. So just let me move my video to the left hand side. Okay. And once you're here, right, you could either use the terminal to run the commands, which is what I'll be doing, or you could actually use Copilot. Let me just show you how Copilot would work in this particular instance. So whatever be the case, okay, you start by just typing OpenSpec. Make sure you have installed OpenSpec and it's working good. Okay. And just do the initialization. So I'll hit enter. Now I can see OpenSpec is firing up. So it says, welcome to OpenSpec. This setup will configure AI skills for AI Studio. Quick start after setup. It gives a few helpful suggestions, and I'll just hit enter to select the tools. So let me hit enter. After the init, this would bring up what is essentially a buffet of AI tools, which you could then choose. You could choose more than one tool if you wanted. So let me just scroll down. I'll just use the up and down keys. So I'll just choose Gemini-CLI, and the way I can select it is I press the space bar. Okay, so that's selected. And if I wanted to select another tool, say I wanted GitHub Copilot as well, I would select that as well. So I've selected two tools here. And now if I press enter, right, you can see that both these tools have been selected, and you now have a directory. So if you look at the left hand pane there, you have an OpenSpec directory, which has the changes directory, which is now empty, and is a specs, and it also has a config.yaml. We'll come to this in a minute. So if you're using Copilot and that is your poison, okay, what you would need to do is within Copilot, make sure that you are in the agent mode, select any model that you want. Okay, so I just selected Gemini 3 Pro. So based on which tier you are on, select the model of your choice. And if you have done this correctly, if you have installed OpenSpec correctly, if you just type in /OSPX, right, it would bring up the different commands available within the OSPX workflow, right? And that is how you make sure that your OSPX or your OpenSpec has been installed correctly. I will not be using Copilot. I'll be using Gemini directly from the terminal. I just wanted to show you how this would work within Copilot. So what I'll do now is I'll just close Copilot here, okay, and I'll just start using Gemini. So let me just go to my terminal here, and I'll just type in Gemini, and obviously I cannot spell it, okay, and this should fire up Gemini. I'll increase the screen state so you can see what's happening. And you can see Gemini has now fired up, and it says Gemini-CLI works best with shift enter control for multi-line input. Would you like to automatically configure? Yeah, just yes, just say yes. And it says you have so many extensions available to update. If you're interested on how to set up Gemini-CLI, I have done a video before on that. I will be linking the video in the description below of this video, so do check that out, and just ignore this updates and things like that, which I will do separately. So that is different to what we are trying to do here, okay? And so let's now continue. Let's make sure that OpenSpecs works correctly. So if I just type /OPSX, okay, it will just bring up all the different options, same as we saw in Copilot, okay. And if you're using, for example, Claude, it will be absolutely the same steps you have to follow. It's just the tool that changes, the commands do not change. Now before we continue, we need to edit the config.yaml file, which you can find under the specs folder, which is situated under the OpenSpec directory. Right, so if you just open this file here, what we need to provide here is the framework within which your OPSX workflow will operate. So you can set the project context and set defaults. So you can do all that here. So the easiest way to actually set this is if you go to the repo, the OpenSpec repo, again to the link to which I'll be sharing in the video description below. So do check out, and if you just scroll down, right, it will bring you to the project configuration section here. So this is, I'm in the opsx.md, the readme file, in case you're wondering. Just scroll down to the project configuration part there, and what I'll do is I'll just copy paste this, right? I'm not going to do anything. No, okay, so I'll just copy paste this. This works absolutely fine for me. The context of tech stack is TypeScript, Node.js, React. I'm using Node.js, API conventions. I'm not going to use any APIs, but still I'll just keep it. Now, if you look into the available commands for OSPX workflow, you can see just 3 of them are available. So you have propose, you have apply, you have explore. There should be others as well. So there should be OSPX new, there should be OSPX continue, there should be OSPX status. And the reason for that is we have not enabled the expanded workflow. Okay. Let me show you what I mean by that. So back on the OpenSpec documentation here. So if you go to the setup section there, it says by default, OpenSpec uses the core workflow profile, which is what we saw. Okay? Propose, explore, apply, archive. This is what is available. If you wanted the expanded workflow commands, which includes new, update, fast forward, verify, sync, lots of them. We're not going to go through all of them. But essentially, if you want these commands, you need to configure them with the OpenSpec config profile and then apply OpenSpec update. So let's try doing that. So I'll just copy this key and I'll go back to my terminal. So let me just exit. Okay, we're gonna escape. Okay, seems it is stuck. I'll just kill this terminal. Okay, I have 2 terminals up. That's the reason. I'll just open a new terminal. It happens, guys. It happens. Okay. And especially since I am in Code Insiders, this is the beta version, right? So there it will be buggy. But the plus side to it is I get all the latest new features, even though it's buggy. So I'll just do this OpenSpec config profile and let me see what all it says. The current profile has only delivery, workflows force selected. And I want, what do you want to configure? Delivery and workflows. And I'll say skills and commands on both. And here let me see what all I can select. So to select this, I have to press space, right? So it says space to toggle. So let me space that. Yeah, let me apply all of that. Okay. So if you need these things, if you need the expanded workflow, you need to select it. And I'll just enter to confirm. And I'll say, yes, please apply these changes. And now it should be applied. But one more thing, I need to run the OpenSpec update. That is what it says in the documentation too, right? So I'll do this OpenSpec update there. And now let me relaunch Gemini. Fingers crossed, it will work this time. So let me now try OSPX again and let me see. And it's still the same. No. Yeah, and it appears. For a minute I had a heart attack. It took a minute to come up, but there now. Now I have all the new workflows commands, right? Expanded workflow commands. So I have sync, verify, propose, onboard, new, FF, export, continue. So if you remember, we just had 3 before, essentially very basic commands. So I will be using OSPX new, right? And this is where I'll specify what I want to do, which is essentially I want the landing page to be in Azure Blue of my web app. And this is what I mean when I say that I want my landing page background to be in Azure Blue, because as you can see right now, it's all dark. I do not like that. That's I want to change it to Azure Blue, which is what I'll be trying to do. So I take OSPX new and I just say that this is the change that I'm proposing, right? So I'll say change the background color of the landing page from black to light azure blue. Yeah, I'll also say make sure all fonts and yeah, make sure all fonts are readable and visible. Okay, because sometimes what happens is that when you change the background color, the existing fonts and it becomes invisible because it blends into that background. So if you have a font that's already in azure blue and if you change the background to azure blue, it just blends in, it becomes invisible. So I do not want that. So I'm just making sure, I'm just instructing it. Hopefully it understands what I want it to do. And I press enter. Let's see what happens. Yeah, tasks, action required, new change, it asks for permission. So I'll just say allow once or for this session. In my case, I'll just say allow for all future sessions. You might want to choose one or two based on what you are trying to do. Now you can see it's cooking something in the background. So it's defining the context file names, context.md. Yeah, that has created a change. So what it's trying to do, if you just go over to your left pane there, and if you click on the changes folder within the OpenSpec folder that was created, now you can see a new subfolder being created. It's called change landing bg color. Bg stands for background, and all the changes will contain all the changes. So you can think of it as a container that will contain all the changes done by OpenSpec. So what exactly has happened is you have given it a project, an existing project. It will not touch that project. It will implement all those changes in a separate folder, which is quite a good way of doing things if you think about it, because it's very easy for you to refer back or roll back, right? And since we have proposed that we need to change the background color, this is the folder name it is given. So it has automatically suggested a very suitable folder name. You can think of it as a feature, or you can think how useful it is to actually create features from this kind of approach, whereby the tool itself suggests what is a feature that you're trying to build, right? So it's right there on the folder. Now let's have a look into what the terminal says. So I'll just expand the terminal, right? And if I just scroll up, it says I've created the new change, and it names the folder change hyphen landing hyphen bg hyphen color, which we just saw, and it retrieved the instructions for the first artifact. Okay, it has given a change name, location, workflows, it's spec driven, current status 0 of 4 artifacts. So it needs to generate 4 artifacts. Till now it has not done anything. And the next stage is the proposal stage. Okay, and that's the first artifact template will be the proposal.md, which will contain what the changes, why we need the changes. Okay. And it says the current landing page uses a black background, which may feel too dark for the intended brand aesthetic or user experience. See how cleverly it has actually expanded on that one or two liners we gave it, right? So this is a brilliant way of defining a feature, and says a light azure blue background will provide a more modern, clean, and welcoming feel. Brilliant. So what are the changes? Change the background color of the landing page from black to light azure blue. Audit and update all font colors to ensure they meet accessibility standards. For readability and visibility against the new background, I have no idea what WCAG. It's probably to do something with the front end engineering. So any UI developers, feel free to comment what is WCAG, what does it stand for. And new capabilities, landing page visuals, standardizing the visual theme, accessibility requirements, all this looks good. New landing page visuals, standardizing the visual theme, looks good. Modified capabilities, none. New capabilities, Again, standards and visual theme, new capabilities, looks good, the impact, okay, this, and it also actually highlights where it is going to make the change, which I find very useful. So these are the two modules that will be impacted. Isn't that brilliant? Okay. So now it says if you're ready with this, okay, you just do continue, or you can actually describe what you would like to change here, and I'll update this for you. This looks all hunky-dory. I don't want to change anything, and I'll just say just continue. So I'll just say OSPX and I'll just give a continue. Okay, why is continue not coming? Right, there seems to be some trouble in Gemini popping up those commands, but if you give it a couple of seconds, it will pop up. Okay, so we'll just do continue. I press enter, and now it will generate the proposal.md. Okay, so let us give it some time to do that. So it's saying I'll fetch the instructions for the proposal artifact in JSON format. Yeah, yeah. Still generating. It took less than under a minute to do this. Okay, just in case you're wondering. And now you can see on the left hand side you have the proposal.md file created. And if you look at the terminal, it says the artifact has been created successfully. The artifact created is a proposal.md, and now the current progress is one of 4 artifacts completed. So it has completed the first artifact. We need to go through the proposal.md file. Okay, very important that you do this. You understand what is the change it's actually proposing. Please do not follow the AI agent blindly. Okay, do a thorough vetting of what it's trying to do. In our case, it's quite simple. It is the why, which you have already gone through. What is the changes? The background color, yes. The font readability audit, yes. New capabilities defines the visual theme, color palette, and accessibility requirements for the landing page, yes. Impact, these are the two modules that will be impacted. If you are working in a team, right, you might want to check this with your fellow developers to make sure that they're okay with this modules being changed. And that's why it's important you actually review what the AI churns out. Wow. So this looks good, so I'll just say continue. So I'll do ooh, what happened? Gemini seems to be all over the place, isn't it? Okay, let me just come down and do a OSPX. Yeah. Each time it just brings up the 3 basic commands, and I have to do a backspace to get everything going. Anyway, I'll do a continue. So the next thing it will try to generate is the technical design document. And there you go, you have the design.md being created. Right? So it says the artifact has been created. That's the second artifact that has been created, and you can see this being created in the specs landing page visual spec.md, right? So if you go to the folder, you can see a new folder has been created under change landing bg color called spec, and you have your spec.md right here. Let's have a quick glance at what it has. Quite simple requirement. Added the requirements: landing page background color. Landing page shall have a background color light azure blue. It gives the pixelated color code. And then it says verify the background color, requirement font readability and contrast. It gives the ratios for normal text and for large text. Verify. Okay, verify the text contrast against this ratio and against this background. This looks quite good. So let us now move on to the next stage, and as usual we just do wow each time. Right, okay, OSPX. Okay, continue. So I'll just do continue. Now this will generate your design.md file, right? And this one right here, which essentially contains a very comprehensive report of what the change is going to be about. So it gives the context, what is going to be changed, what modules are going to be changed. It says the module source app global.css is going to get changed. The base background color is black in dark mode and white in light mode. The goal is to change the landing page to a specific azure blue. So you have the codes and everything. The goals, the non-goals, which is essentially that's not going to implement these changes. It's not a glow, so it's not going to redesign the layout or changing the theme for any other pages. So those are out of scope. It's a nice word, isn't it? Instead of out of scope, you just put it's a non-goal, goal and non-goal. And your decisions update global CSS variables, the choice. So this is really a technical spec if you think about it, isn't it? So it gives the decision where it's going to make the changes, what changes exactly it's going to make, and what's the decision, what is the risk. So it's saying the new light background may clash with the existing header and footer which uses PG Gray 800. Okay, so it says the mitigation is update this to a complementary shader and ensure they have a clear visual boundary, which is what we asked it to do anyway. That's quite good. Now let us just continue. So I'll say OSPX continue. Right. So let me just expand this again. And I'll say continue so that it generates the next artifact. The next artifact is the tasks artifact, which essentially is a list of the tasks it needs to do in order to achieve the end goal, what it's trying to implement. So it will have a nice list there. So which will be unchecked. I'll show you what I mean. So yeah, so it has generated this. So task.md. So I'll just open this and now you can see, right? It has three sections. It has the global styling updates and it has task 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, update the CS variables, 1.4, all the way till 3.3. Till now, none of the tasks have been implemented, right? So as the tasks get implemented one by one, this task will be checked with a cross, which essentially means that that task has been completed. It's a nice way of tracking till where your changes have progressed. Because just think about it. Suppose you're interrupted for some reason on what you're doing and you want to carry on maybe at a future time, a later date. You know exactly where you need to carry on from on and what exactly were the changes made or not made. Right? So yeah, that's quite good. Now let's just continue from here. Right. And now what we need to do is not continue. It just suggests what you need to do. So all the artifacts have been created. So all the 4 by artifacts are complete, and now is the time to apply these proposed changes in these artifacts. So as usual, I'll just do apply, and yeah, so you have to apply here, just hit on enter, and now we will see the tasks being executed one by one. Okay, in case your AI agent gets stuck for some reason, it could be due to bandwidth issues, it could be due to throttling limits applied by our AI agent provider. You just need to type continue. Just remember, just do a continue on your prompt there and it will just carry on from that point onwards. And now you can see, right, you can see all those into marks on the tasks, which essentially means it has completed those tasks. How cool is that? Let us give it some time. So it maybe took a couple of minutes there, and just let me expand the terminal, and you can see what has happened. There is all the 12 tasks have been completed, right? So all the way from 1.1 to 3.3 all have been marked in nice X's. Let's just make sure. So if I go to the tasks .md file, markdown file, I can see now all of them have been marked with an into, which essentially means these tasks have been completed. Now let us test out these changes. Okay, so I'll just open a terminal window, and since it's a Node.js project, I'll just do a npm run dev. This should fire up our project. Yeah, it says yes, it's available, and right away you can see now the background has changed. It's a much more pleasing light azure blue. Yeah, and the main video is now bigger, so it has decided this actually needs to fill the page, which is quite good. So let me see if it has made any other changes. If I go to the episodes page there, yeah, it has even changed the next page, right? So it has gone beyond what I asked it. It has actually applied the changes to all the pages, which is not what I wanted. So if I wanted, I could just go back and ask it, you know what, I just want the changes to be limited to the first page. Right? But I'm not going to do that, because from a demo perspective, I think this worked quite well. So let me just go back here and we'll just hit on play. So since our changes worked well or reasonably well, okay, now I'll just archive the changes. So I'll just do OSPX and I'll just do archive, which should be somewhere here. Come on, where are you? Where are you? Yeah, it has a bulk archive. I'll just do archive, okay. So bulk archive is essentially archive multiple completed changes at once. We just have not done multiple changes, so I'll just do a complete, just a single completed change. Okay, so I'll just do archive. And what this will do is it will move this particular features into archive folder, so that we can refer back to it whenever we want it. Yeah, it asks for activate some sort of skill. Okay, it says OPENSPEC sync delta specs from change to main specs. Yes, just allow this. I'm absolutely fine with it. Okay, it keeps asking me for certain permissions. What does it does? Allow execution. Okay, it wants to create a new directory. Okay, so it wants to create an archive folder, and it needs to move this, whatever changes we have made under that. Okay, I'll just say yes, and it has completed the archive. So it says it has archived to the OpenSpec changes archive. So if I go onto my left hand pane and if I click OpenSpec changes, and yeah, you have your archive folder, and this is where it has archived the current specs. That's brilliant. What else remains? Okay, they also have a feature where you can see the OpenSpec dashboard, and I believe it is OSPX. Again, if I type the whole OSPX, it just shows a very limited options. So just type //OS. It will bring in all the options there. And I think if you wanted, you could do verify by the way, you could do sync. That's not what I'm interested in. So I'll just do okay. I'm not being able to see that. Okay, I'm not being able to see that because that's not under the new workflow, it's under the old workflow. Okay, so if I just do an open spec, it's not OSPX, I'll just do an open spec. I think I need to come out of Gemini. Let me just try it here. Yeah, I need to come out of Gemini. So I'll just come out of Gemini. It shows me this. So I'll just open a new terminal window. Okay, and I'll just do open spec and I'll just do a view here. Yeah, and this gives me the dashboard. So this is not OSPX view as I erroneously tried to do. It is just the plain simple open spec view which you need to provide outside of your Gemini terminal. And it gives you the open spec dashboard. It says this is a specification, no active changes since we closed this change. But if I assume I should have actually not closed the Gemini window, I should have opened this window in parallel, and if I had actually typed this command there, it would actually have shown me, okay, what were the active changes while it was doing it. Since now the changes have been completed, it says there are no active changes. That's it, and it just says that's one spec 2 requirements, and that's pretty much it. Now, how does OpenSpec compare with its competitors? How does it compare with something like SpecKit, which is a heavyweight, top of the shelf product, right? I had done a session on that, so do check that out. The video will be linked in the description below. So SpecKit is thorough, but it is heavyweight. Yes, I agree. And it has rigid face gates, lots of markdown Python setup. OpenSpec is much lighter and lets you iterate freely. Versus Cairo from AWS, it's powerful, but you're locked onto their IDE and limited to Claude models. Yes, and versus nothing. So this is an AI coding without specs, means vague prompts and unpredictable results. So obviously OpenSpec trumps them, or so they claim to be. Right. And as a summary, it's more flexible, it empowers team, and remember, it's still evolving. If I take OpenSpec, say the next week, I'm sure some of the flows would have changed, some of the commands would have changed. You would have noticed I did stumble a bit during this demo, and the reason for that is it has changed since the time I actually looked into it, which was a couple of weeks ago. So there were new commands, there were new flows. The way I implemented the commands or actually initiated the commands has changed. Okay, so that is something you have to keep in mind. Now, what do I think of OpenSpec? It is flexible. Totally agree. It's a great product, but I wish they had created it to be a bit more intuitive. So, for example, when I tried to set it up, as you would have noticed, right, I stumbled quite a few times. One of the reasons was it is a evolving product, so it changes. But another annoying factor and a pet peeve that I have against it is that when I try to select something, right? So when I move the up and down arrows, and when I am in a particular thing that I would like to select, it does not auto select. It wants me to hit the space bar and then hit enter, which is not intuitive at all. I'm sure though that in a future release they will fix it. So let's hope they do that. But other than that, it's an absolutely fabulous product. Okay, so it's suitable for existing changes or new changes, and it's quite easy to use, other than my pet peeves that I mentioned. In my next session, we'll be discussing a similar Spec Driven Development tool from Google's offering, Conductor. So keep an eye out for that. Till then, adios.